Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here, and on the show today, national NFL writer Matt Verderame. Matt, welcome back to the show. Great to see you. SI, along with also you got the Matt Verderame show now on Patreon. If people want to check that out, along with your stuff covering Kansas City. So here's what I did. I wanted to get a different perspective, a little bit fresh, a little unique. Talk about the bigger picture as we have run into the slower part now of free agency, and now we're leading into blazing hot draft takes. So let's look back a little bit. I have made the list of the 5 winners and losers of free agency, and I want to see if you agree with these teams, and then we could talk about where they're at. But first, welcome back to the show, my friend. How we doing?
Good. It's kind of the calm before the storm. Free agency's done for the most part. The draft is a little less than a month away, so we're getting into it. But I'm looking forward to it. This is always a fun time of year.
All right. So here's my number 5. I'm going to count down from 5 to 1 for the winners. Then we can talk about the losers.
Okay.
I have the Minnesota Vikings. I went back before we did the show, every single team and their moves, who they lost, who they picked up. And here's why I included the Vikings as a winner. I know they were one of the least active teams in free agency, but I also was looking back into some history, and I know Barnwell did an article on this as well. It's not always the best thing, Matt, to be one of the winners of free agency. So I think the Vikings didn't spend any stupid money. They also didn't lose a lot because they got a free agent quarterback who costs $1 million. And it's probably the biggest jump any team could make, going from one of the worst quarterbacks in the league last year to a top 15 quarterback. So you can add your linebackers, you can add your corners, your fullbacks, your kickers, whatever you want. There isn't going to be much bigger jump than going from well below average quarterback play to average quarterback play. Would you agree?
Yeah. Look, I have never subscribed to the idea that you win free agency because you spend the most money. I mean, typically speaking, if you spend the most money, it's because you suck, and you probably are actually losing because you are terrible and starting from a really bad place. Like, I don't think anybody spent more money than the Raiders and the Titans. There's a reason those teams spent the most money. They're not good. And a lot of the guys that they signed, they're going to be dead money hits in about 3 years. So, look, I think the Vikings, you could make an argument that nobody made a more impactful signing based on the position that they acquired the player at. The big thing with Kyler Murray is going to be, is he healthy? Can he stay healthy? Because 2 of the last 3 years, he's not played much. He's clearly better than J.J. McCarthy. Almost any starting quarterback in the league is better than J.J. McCarthy based on what we've seen. So he's definitely better. The question for me is health. If he's healthy, that's an offense that should score points. I mean, I don't, to your point, I think you put it right. I don't think Kyler Murray is a top 10 quarterback in the league. I do think he's a top half of the league quarterback. And in the NFC, I mean, how many quarterbacks are definitively better than him? I mean, Stafford, okay, sure. I think you have to say Darnold at this point, to be fair to Sam Darnold. After that, I don't know. I mean, I would say the NFC North as a whole has a bunch of very odd quarterbacks in terms of like really breaking it. And I would also say Dak's better, but Jordan Love can be. Jordan Love also has games where he's terrible. Caleb Williams can be. I think you'd have to say he is. I covered both those playoff games in person. He made throws that were unbelievable. He also made some of the worst throws you'll ever see in like certain spots. So I think Goff is Goff, and I think it depends on the personnel around him. Bottom line is, listen, Murray's an obvious upgrade. And yeah, I think just the fact that you're upgrading that much at that position, yeah, it makes them a winner.
I was thinking about this exactly last night about how many quarterbacks you could say are absolutely without question better. And if you say, I mean, Jared Goff, I would say is based on his performance, but then, you look at, there were times in his career where he did not have certain players around him or an offensive line. He also is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL under pressure. Every one of them has their warts, and every one of them also has high-end performances when they've been really good. Caleb Williams, if he does not improve his accuracy, is always going to be a volatile quarterback who has to make crazy plays running around. Goff, we saw him last year without the offensive line, and he declined when he played good defenses and still was fine when he played bad defenses. And then Jordan Love, I think, is the hardest one to figure out for me because I have seen Jordan Love in front of my eyes be spectacular. I've seen him be absolutely horrendous in front of my eyes. And every year it seems to be the same sort of story with him where he just goes through these peaks and valleys, which I think is normal for a quarterback who ranks somewhere between 8th and 14th best in the league. But I think the consistency element is where the best of the absolute best guys tend to shine.
Well, I also think too, I mean, the best quarterbacks, they're going to elevate the team around them. I don't know that Jared Goff elevates the team around him. Jared Goff plays to the talent level that is on his roster, which is why when the Rams were loaded, they went to a Super Bowl with him. And when the Rams kind of had a lull, so did he. I look at Jared Goff and say, I think he is a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. I think he's limited in certain regards. Also, too, like there's always kind of been a book on Goff. Like if you can pressure Goff and get in his face, it kind of falls apart. No one's saying that about Allen and Mahomes and like those guys. It's like, yeah, you can pressure them all you want. They're still gonna perform. So look, I like Goff. I think he's a good quarterback. I also think he's the kind of quarterback that he needs things to be right. And if they're not right, it starts to kind of fall apart.
And that's what I mean about all these quarterbacks having their warts. But you look when Kyler Murray was at his best in 2021 or even through stretches of 2024. I saw somebody who covers the Cardinals point out that through, I think it was maybe 12 weeks, Kyler Murray was number one in ESPN's QBR because, of course, that factors in the running and the scrambling element too. But he's had inconsistency. He's faded toward the end of seasons multiple times, which I think is a concern. And what I'm really interested in here, Matt, is how much do they put on his shoulders? Because I think there are volume. It's like basketball where there's volume players that if you can match volume and efficiency, you become one of the best ever. But there's a lot of basketball players who maybe take 8 shots a night and are very efficient that if they took 15 shots a night, they would not be. And I think with Murray, he's had to be for his entire career. He's had to be the whole offense. And when you look at the drop back numbers, how many times they drop back versus their rushing success with actual designed handoff plays, they've basically said like, hey, go be our whole team many times during his career. I think the Vikings, well, I don't believe they'll have a top 5 run game. I don't think that they have to ask him to be spectacular all the time.
No, and they can't. Look, I mean, Kyler Murray played 7 years in Arizona. They made the playoffs once. And part of that was they're the Cardinals, and they've been inconsistent around them. Part of that's been that Kyler Murray's inconsistent. And he's a guy that there have been times, look, I mean, there have been times with Kyler Murray where he's played really well. And there have been times with Kyler Murray where he's been a guy that it's like, yeah, I don't mind facing him on the other side of the field, actually. I think, again, if he's a similar play, he's completely different than Goff, but it's the similar idea of if things are good around him, he can win. If things are not good around him, go look at the 7 years in Arizona. Like, that's what happens. And so, look, I think Kevin O'Connell will manage him well. I think he's got an elite talent at receiver. He's got a very good receiver on the other side. He has a good tight end. He's got a running game that I think can do things. But, like, yeah. I mean, realistically, look, the biggest thing with Minnesota to me is, like, can they block for him? Because you have to block for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not tall. He needs lanes to throw the ball. They need to keep him clean. And if they can do that, sure. I mean, he's definitely better than McCarthy, but like, there's also a reason that he was available, right? I mean, if you're a quarterback and you're available, there's a reason. It didn't just, they didn't forget to re-sign you. Like, there's a reason you're out there. And so he's got holes in his game, and the Vikings are going to have to mask that by doing different things.
What's really interesting to me is when you talk about the Cardinals and how bad they've been, they've never had a top 10 defense when Kyler Murray doesn't play. So if you just take out rookie seasons, those are always tough. He wins like 45% of his games. when he doesn't play since 2020, they win like 15% of their games. They're like the worst. So it's not like, and it's also not like they've never had other quarterbacks who could kind of play. I mean, Colt McCoy was a good backup. Jacoby Brissett is a good backup. And those guys just lost every single game with the Arizona Cardinals. They haven't had great coaches. They haven't had a stable organization. They have a weight room that has, I don't know, rusty nails people are stepping on. If you look at the NFLPA survey,
Right.
I mean, it's been a pretty rough ride. Oh, and they also don't have Justin Jefferson. So I think that this is a very interesting true test case for a lot of things. It's a true test case for Kevin O'Connell because there will have to have adjustments. It's a true test case for what is Kyler Murray really? I mean, as a guy who was drafted number 1, and you mentioned teams moving on from guys, but we have kind of seen this work. You mentioned Goff, but Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, like these are all guys who fit a very similar profile of super highly drafted players who just needed to find their right spot. And I mean, I have kind of been selling this to the audience as the best option for a month. So I am behind it very much, but I also think there are potential pitfalls into the future where if it goes just okay, then what do you really do?
You draft a quarterback next year because there's about 8 of them that are going to be in the first round. At least that's what the thinking is now. It could change, obviously. But I mean, he's the best option he's the best option of a bad situation. I mean, he was free agent. He was a free agent for a reason. The Cardinals did not move off of him because he's been great. The Cardinals moved off to him because he's been hurt 2 of the last 3 years. They haven't been able to win. And when they signed him to a big, massive long-term deal, they literally had to put a clause in there that like, hey, you will do your homework throughout the week. That's not great. So, I mean, look, again, can it work? Yeah. Is he better than J.J. McCarthy? Yeah. But, I mean, there's a reason that he was available. And in his case, I think the reasons are injury history, sometimes a concern of like, does he put in the work that he needs to put in? I think all those things factor in. The Cardinals haven't won, which again is not just him, but I mean, it's all those things are why he's out there. It's the same thing why Tua was out there. Why is Tua out there? Well, because he's had a bunch of concussions and the team's not winning. And, and he had a bunch of faux pas, at the pressers and everything else. And like, that's why. I mean, Tua led the league in passing a couple of years ago. Well, why is he out there? Well, because they don't want him. It's the same reason the Cardinals got rid of Kyler Murray. They don't want him anymore.
Well, I think teams are also better in both instances. I mean, Tua's play declined significantly. Kyler Murray's last 22 games of football are still very good, but both teams understand if they have that person at quarterback, they're going to win a couple games, and that's not really that good for them. I mean, you mentioned the quarterback situation. They've got Gardner Minshew battling it out with Jacoby Brissett. Like they've made no serious effort. And I mean, really, they should have been a team to go get Malik Willis. The Dolphins bring in Malik Willis. They get rid of every single weapon. They tear it all the way down to the screws and sign him to a multi-year contract looking to try to build around him. I think if you have Kyler Murray in Arizona and you win 7 games, what good does that do you? It's much better to have Gardner Minshew win 3.
It is. I agree with you. But I will say, though, I'll push back a little. The last 30 games of his career in Arizona, I mean, he's thrown 37 touchdowns in 30 games with 19 interceptions. He's averaging 6.8 yards per attempt. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not – look, he has not been – I mean, he hasn't been a Pro Bowler since 2021. Like, they would have cut him, I think, a year before this, but they just couldn't because they gave him such a big contract. Again, I mean, played 5 games last year. 2023, he played 8 games. The year before that, he played 11 games. Like, he has not been legitimately healthy except for 2024. And in that season, he played every game. He threw for 3,800 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 11 picks. And, like, it's fine. It's fine. But I think, look, it's, again, if I'm being honest, do I think he makes him better? Yeah, he definitely makes him better. I mean, J.J. McCarthy was horrific. Does he make, like, I guess the seminal question with the Vikings is, he makes them better. Does he make them a threat? Because those are 2 totally different things. Like, he makes them better, right? But a lot of guys would have made them better over J.J. McCarthy. Does he make them a legitimate threat in a conference where there are a lot of good teams. I mean, I'd argue the NFC West. I mean, the other three teams that we're not talking about right now are all ridiculously good. The NFC North might be the best division of football, top to bottom, right? So it's tough, man. I mean, for years it's been how good the AFC's been, and now I think it's the opposite, where it's the AFC. Everybody in the conference feels like a question mark, and the NFC you've got these teams. Which like, geez, these teams. I mean, they're all going to beat each other up. It's going to be tough.
I totally agree. And we're going to get to some of those other teams momentarily. The most interesting thing for me about the Kyler Murray signing is that every other quarterback option, I think if you presented it to me of, well, they're going to get Geno Smith, they're going to get Kirk Cousins, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, I would have said, I just don't see a world where that person is different or where they move the needle at all. At least with Murray, there is that world, because you make fair points about the question marks to throw out there. But also, if he does hit the high end of it, you could be a threat. As of right now, though, our friends over at FanDuel not really buying. I mean, they're plus 550 to win the division. That's 4th out of 4. Their 8.5 win over under is not, impressive at all. But it's the only move that they could have made where I would have said, you know what? This might be one of those classic Vikings things where you get the overachieving quarterback that wasn't fitting somewhere else. So they're number 5 on my list. I was personally mostly okay with them not doing other stuff except for the lack of emergency podcasts, because they did not sell out their future and they didn't make moves like last year that end up in just becoming dead cap or overrated players. The prices on a lot of guys like Travis, now pronounced Achan, that's a lot of money for a guy who's just an okay running back. I thought he would have been a good fit, but like, there's a lot of these players who just got too much money. I don't know if this was your observation, but it was mine, Matt. I felt like by the end of day 2, we were sort of done with free agency. I don't know if the Vikings completely anticipated that, but normally what happens is it's like day 1, holy heck, and then a trickle. This was not a trickle this year. It was like, this is over. So what are they supposed to do? Like, go overpay, I don't know, Hollywood Brown or something? Like that didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, I agree. I think it pretty much was 2 days, maybe a third day. But yeah, I think for the most part, listen, there were some contracts that there always are every year that you just look at and go, wow, I can't believe that team gave that kind of money out. The Panthers seem to be the annual team now that does this. Last year they gave to Sean Wharton, it was like 3 years and $54 million. And as someone who, I cover the whole league for SI, I also do some stuff on the side with the Chiefs. Sean Wharton's a nice player. I could not believe I thought he was going to get like $8 million a year, and they gave him 3 and 54. They just gave Jalen Phillips 4 years and 120. Jalen Phillips never had 9 sacks in a season. So yeah, I mean, it happens. And I think a lot of times you are better off doing nothing than doing that. I mean, yeah, you're marginally better, but at what cost?
All right, so I had the Vikings number 5 on my list. Number 4 is, even though they overpaid for Travis Achan, I had the New Orleans Saints. They made a lot of nice little additions. One that I think went under the radar was Caden Ellis, who is a good linebacker that I had kind of circled for the Minnesota Vikings. They are doing the thing where, David Edwards, a guard, big improvement there for their offensive line, where they feel very good about their quarterback. I would say young, but he's not that young. Their inexperienced quarterback, Tyler Shuck. And I think that they did a good job of spending money. And my friend Nick Underhill, who covers the Saints, said that they actually didn't have to make every contract the worst thing of all time for the future to go in major debt. So I thought they did a good job of building that team around what they think they have at quarterback.
Yeah, look, I like Edwards. I figured the Bills would keep either he or Connor McGovern, and they kept McGovern. Edwards is a good player. He's been a good player for a while in Buffalo. Rock solid at guard. ETN, HN, whatever, however you want to say it. Look, I think he's a good running back. I think he's a top 10 back, or right around that range, like right top 10, top 12. Look, they had to do something. Kamara's done. So they went out and they got him. That's fine, local product. That offense, if they add like one guy to go opposite of Olave, is fairly interesting. They're actually, I think, better than people think they are on offense. Defensively, Cam Jordan remains a free agent. We'll see if he ends up going back for another year there, if he goes to a contender and tries to win one. But I like the fact, like, if they let him walk, they let Demario Davis go back to the Jets after, a long stint in New Orleans. I like the fact that between those guys leaving, them trading away Lattimore, a year back, like, they're getting younger. It felt like that team was just getting older and more expensive every year. And they've got, I would have liked to see them try to keep Alontae Taylor. He goes to Tennessee. I like him. But overall, look, it all falls, not to go back to the quarterback, but the Shuck. Like, if he's good, then they're interested. They were pretty good at the end of last year. They won 3 of their last 4 games. But I do like that they brought in Etienne. And I like the fact that defensively, they seem to be turning the page and getting younger, and not just, well, this guy's been here a while and he's productive. He's been productive. Yeah, but he's like 37. So I think the Saints, in a division that you could really make an argument, like, who knows, like, any of those teams could win that division. Yeah, I like the way they went about their business.
Right now on FanDuel, they're plus 340 to win the division, but it's not that far-fetched if Shuck takes a step forward or just even plays like he did at the end of the season. And they would be a team, I think, to try to draft at least one weapon, if not multiple weapons. Number 3 on my list was the Washington Commanders. And they did a lot. And this is going a little bit against the argument for the Vikings. They also did a lot last year. And I was looking at somebody's article in the offseason last year who gave the Commanders offseason like an A+. And then it turned out to be a total disaster. Same thing kind of happened for the Vikings. But I think adding pass rush was something they just had nothing at all. They were trying to run out what was left of Von Miller, so they add some pass rush. Yep. They improved their backfield a little bit. And I thought that they improved what's around Jaden Daniels. The question is still kind of, what are they going to do with their weapons? Are they going to add another wide receiver through the draft? But I also think, Matt, that teams that added very expensive wide receivers, I might put that as a demerit. Like, the spending on receivers is just preposterous now.
Yeah, the Alec Pierce contract is objectively hilarious. Like, the guy runs one route, and the Colts are like, here's $29 million a year. Like, okay, great. I think I'd rather have Michael Pittman. But in any event, so I agree fully with the Commanders. I wrote about them, I believe, a little bit at SI. Look, Owe was one of my favorite players in this free agency crop. Now, 400, I would have been a little more comfortable, like 480. But that being said, when Jalen Phillips gets $30 million a year, like, the market is going to go wild. Owe is a really good player. 10 sacks, 12 years ago in Baltimore. He had 7.5 in 12 games last year for the Chargers. Had a bunch of quarterback hits. He's young, former first-round pick. He seems to be getting better. So I like the fact Washington went and got him. Chaseon's a good player coming off a good year with the Pats. Like, he's kind of that guy, like, if he's the number 1 pass rusher for you, you got big problems. But if he's like your second or third, then okay, fine, which he is for them, because, of course, they also have Teron Payne inside. They got a Menahu. Listen, I don't know if he's got anything left. Tim Settle. Some rotational players there up front. I like Leo Chenal for them. And then the back end, they get Nick Cross, who I really like as a safety from the Colts, and Amik Robertson, who can kind of do everything in the back end. He can play a little bit of corner, he can play a little bit of safety, you move him around. I think they did a great job. Plus, Dan Quinn's a defensive mind there. So you play to his strengths. To your point, though, the big question for me is, like, offensively, what is that team? Like, you have Jaden Daniels, who needs to stay healthy after last year. You have Terry McLaurin, who I think is fantastic. But after that, it's Luke McCaffrey and it's De'Ami Brown. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to work. I like Rachaad White, but I still think they need a little bit more juice there. Yeah, now they have Krosky Merritt, so I think that room you probably get away with it. They need somebody, and I would argue like multiple somebodies to catch a pass on that team. Like, you need a receiver, and then like a tight end. Okonkwo, okay. Like, I'd like to maybe see them add like a secondary tight end there, like maybe in the middle rounds. But I know they have Sanat from a year ago, but I think offensively they need to add some punch, but I love what they did on the defensive side.
And they might be a Jeremiah Love team to add. He's probably the best overall weapon that anyone can add.
Arnell Tate.
I think that's a really good move to add Carnell Tate. I mean, personally, I would rather take a wide receiver than a running back, the positional value and so forth. But if they took Love, I mean, that might work. What was unfortunate last year is it just felt like a total failure to launch for year 2 of Jaden Daniels with the injuries. And then now that becomes a huge question for them. But I think their roster is at least solidified to the point where they should be able to compete in a division where, maybe I've got some losers on the other side in this same division. So I'm going to go forward to the next number 2 that you already may have indicated you don't agree with this one. And that is the Carolina Panthers. They did spend a lot of money on Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd. I think they needed that badly. And then they also added to the depth of their offensive line with Rasheed Walker on a nothing deal and Luke Fortner on a nothing deal. And those players, I mean, Walker is nothing special, but he can certainly play. And my new thing, Matt, the hill I want to die on the NFL is you should actually pay real money to backup linemen. You should pay real backup linemen a lot of money because that chart, whoever it is that puts it out every year, that shows the percentage of snaps that offensive lines play together. Nobody plays together more than like 70%. That's the high end. And most of the league doesn't even play together 50% of the time. So I liked what they did there. And then their defense just could not get after the passer at all. I thought they struggled with, their defensive system, how they like to play a lot of zones with the linebacker position, and adding, Devin Lloyd was a big one for me. But it sounded like you thought they were the biggest overspenders.
So I think with the Panthers, for me, 2 things can be true at once. Are they better? Yes. I also think they spent just a ton of money in ways that I don't love. And they've done this now like 3 years in a row, because a couple of years ago, they spent it on Robert Hunt. Now, Robert Hunt's a good player. He's a good guard. That contract, to be fair to the Panthers, because the guard markets continue to go up, like you could make an argument that contract ended up being okay. They also spent that same year, Damian Lewis, who spent a ton of money. Look, I would have liked them to be actually a little more aggressive with the center. I just feel like they could have, not Linderbaum. I mean, Linderbaum, that contract is just staggering. But, like maybe like a Blados when he got cut by the Commanders, somebody like that. Or even I'm blanking on his name, the guy with the Detroit Mays, who I thought they could have just re-signed him. Like he was in the building, like just keep him. But they decided to let him walk. Okay. I like Jalen Phillips as a player. His injury history scares the hell out of me. And the fact that he's never even had 10 sacks, you're paying that guy $120 million. Like, to me, that is the classic, man, he is like one more injury away from you're like, can we get out of this after 1 year? Devin Lloyd's a fascinating one for me, because Devin Lloyd was a guy who Jacksonville said, we don't need to pick up your 5th-year option. We're good. And then he went out and had a great year. It was a second-team All-Pro. He had 5 interceptions, 10 quarterback hits. Like, my question with Devin Lloyd is, which guy is he? If he's that guy, fine with it. If he's the first 3 years, you're sitting there going, yeah, he's all right, but like, I think the Panthers took a lot of big swings on guys that it could work out, but it also could be like, man, we got a lot of dead money coming in 2028. Like, the other thing was, and I agree with your point on receivers, the receiver market is bonkers. They need somebody other than McMillan. Yeah. Like, I remember, I can't remember, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I remember writing a story about how like Ted McMillan last year was like 70% of their receiving yardage, like pretty deep into the year. It was some crazy thing. You're like, Jalen Coker kind of ate into that at the end of the year. He played better, but they need somebody. I mean, right now you're sitting, Xavier Leggette's kind of been a guy to this point. I do think Coker's interesting. They added Mechie, which was a great story, but it hasn't been much in the NFL. Like, they need another guy. Like, I would like to see them go get like a Romeo Dobbs. Like, just somebody, like a professional level receiver. And now in the draft, like, maybe they do it there. Maybe they go get Denzel Boston, or maybe like Mekhi Lemon falls to him. But man, like, if they don't, it feels like they're really light in that room.
And, drafting receivers, just like any other position, you're coin flipping on whether they could come in right away. Yes. McMillan was phenomenal right away, but if you get somebody like Leggett, who just does not clicked at all for them, then you are kind of up a creek. And who was the other guy that they traded to Dallas? They drafted who was that?
God, they got like a second round pick for him.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
It was a fairly high draft.
A Mingo.
Oh yeah. Jonathan Mingo. Right. Yeah. So they've kind of swung and missed a couple of times. So now relying on that is a tough one. I felt like Jalen Naylor would have been good for them as somebody who could probably go from a 3 to a 2, but the market was just so pathetic at the top. And now you're taking Christian Kirks and Hollywood Browns and these old OBJ wants to play. Like, I guess, do you want that? I mean, I don't know. It was hard for teams that needed wide receivers, but I liked what they did on the defensive side where I felt like they were pretty weak. And I guess I'm curious to see just if there's one more step to Bryce Young. I think if there's one more step to Bryce Young, then they are in a really tough position of what to do with Bryce Young, because the guy last year was a backup caliber quarterback that you let go probably. But if he takes one more step, then is he like the 18th best? Is he like a Bo Nix caliber quarterback or something?
I think that right now it's very hard to make the argument that they should keep Bryce Young past this year. Yep. Like, if I'm the Panthers, if I'm Dan Morgan, I am not picking up his option. I am playing this year out. If he somehow turns a corner, great, I've got the tag. You're not going to go anywhere. If he doesn't, then he's gone. And if I'm the Panthers, next year becomes I am doing whatever I have to do to go get a quarterback. I think sometimes there's this theory of like, well, if you're not awful, you can't get a quarterback. That's not true. Like, before Deshaun Watson, like, everything went horrendously wrong. The Texans moved up and got him. And, he played well enough that he got 3 first-round picks set for him. The Chiefs went up and got Mahomes from 27 to 10. I mean, you can move up and get a guy. And if I'm the Panthers, that's kind of the hill I'm dying. Like, let's say they have another year like they just had. They're picking 19th. If I feel like I got to get into the top 8 to get a quarterback, if I'm Carolina, I got to give up a first-round pick in 2027. Fine. I'm doing it. Like, I'm taking that risk. We'll see what they do. But right now, to me, Bryce Young is holding that entire team back. They need somebody who can go out and elevate the pieces around them. And he, at this point, hasn't been able to do it.
Well, and to your point, it seems like more free agent quarterbacks are coming available than ever on a year-to-year basis as teams do things like release Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold, and they play on their own timelines and rookie quarterback contracts and trying to pick their own guys and so forth. Teams are not paying necessarily someone $50 million after a lot of those big contracts blew up. So they're more willing to let them go, I think. And someone will come available if your team is stable. This is why the Vikings land Kyler Murray. Like, your team is stable. Your coach is good. You have a good wide receiver. They could set themselves up for that. It just feels very risky diving into that pool. But I think they'll always be limited by Bryce Young. I think he's a guy who could play in the league, but where does the ceiling come from? With Murray, we talk about, well, it's scrambling, playmaking, arm talent. With Bryce Young, I mean, it's accuracy and probably leadership and intelligence, but physically, there's nowhere else to go for Bryce Young that could make it upside. It's just, if you could build the best team in the league, then maybe there's something there around him. That's going to be pretty hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, if that's the level of like, we need to build the best team in football to have a shot, you probably need a new quarterback.
Right. Number one. So I cheated a little bit on this, and I included trades and not just free agent signings.
So the Rams.
And I went with the Rams. Yes. I mean, the McDuffie trade for them is a bleep them picks trade. That guy's really good. And I also thought their contract for Jalen Watson, well, it is expensive, but they are clearly planning on not having Matthew Stafford into the future. And the low-key, really excellent move to me, and I always count this, I count keeping your own players as free agent signings. I thought them keeping Cam Curl was a really big deal because I thought he emerged as an excellent safety for them last year. So now, instead of, as they've done for many years, kind of patchworking or whatever since the Super Bowl, that cornerback position, they might have a top 5 defensive backfield. They might have a top 5 defensive line now. I think that they deserve to be talked about as the best in the NFC in free agency.
I don't think there's any question. I think they're the best, period. I think they're the best in football. They're the best free agency, period. Listen, McDuffie, The only question I have about McDuffie is where are they going to play him? Because, last year, people think of him as a slot corner. He was a boundary corner for the Chiefs last year. He played 80% of his snaps, something like that, outside. And look, he's a good outside corner. He's a great slot corner. When he played outside, there were some times, go watch the Thanksgiving Day game against Dallas, where George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb just gave him the work for 60 minutes in that game. Now, that being said, I think if he's inside, he's the best slot corner in football. And he's an excellent tackler. He can blitz. He's smart. He's dependable off the field. You don't have to worry you're going to get a 3 a.m. phone call if you're Les Snead about Trent McDuffie. I think he's a tremendous player, which is why my alarm goes off for some meeting I don't think I have, which is why they gave up 4 picks for him. And I get it. And I don't even necessarily think it's an over. I think a lot of teams would have been an overpay, but for where the Rams are, I get it. Watson, I got to tell you, I think that's right about what he should have gotten. Jalen Watson is a very, very good corner. Now, the one thing with Watson I think is important here is that they play a lot of press man with him because that is what he does. Like his strength is what the Chiefs have done for years, which is what L'Jarius Sneed did when he was there, which is I am going to get on the line of scrimmage and I'm going to F you up. That is their mentality is you are not going to get off the ball and we are just going to absolutely beat the hell out of you with the line of scrimmage. Now with McDuffie, they usually played him more off because he's in the slot when he was in the slot. But Watson, if the Rams use him as an off corner, I don't love the signing as much. If they use him as a press corner, I think it's excellent. He's been one of my favorite players in the league that nobody talks about for a few years. I think he's been excellent. So I love what the Rams did. I agree with you. Bringing back Curl. They signed a Lake at the end of the season, brought him back. Look, this is an all-in year for the Rams because next year, you look at that roster, man, they got a lot of guys hitting free agency. Stafford, who knows, he may retire, but he's hitting free agency. Puka Nacua is hitting free agency. Devontae Adams, I would imagine this is his last year there. Okay, he's hitting free agency. Kobe Turner, Byron Young. There are a lot of guys. A lot of guys. And look, it's a curse of drafting so well. Can't pay them all. So this is if they're going to win a Super Bowl with this group, this is the year. This is an all-in, chips in the middle. I love their offseason. I think adding those 2 guys was tremendous business.
And if Stafford plays even 75% as well as he did last year with the team that he has, they are a clear Super Bowl contender again, top to bottom, great coaching. All across, but especially that felt like if you were going to beat them, well, and this is what the Seattle Seahawks took advantage of, right? Was if you're going to beat them, it's going to be at their cornerback position. And that's how they lost in the NFC championship game and didn't reach the Super Bowl. If they had Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, they probably get there. So let me just run through the losers more quickly, since you've already given a lot of your time and maybe even missed a meeting because of it.
Well, I'm looking right now to see if I even have it. I don't know. No, we're good. No, they canceled. Okay. Every week we have a meeting that then just gets pushed or canceled. That's fine.
Okay.
Welcome to big business. Carry on.
All right, just making sure. Okay, first loser I have is the Philadelphia Eagles, and we kind of knew that was going to be the case. Yep. And if they have to trade away A.J. Brown, which it seems like they absolutely have to, they just feel like, to me, a team that is not going to be good enough. There's a lot to like. They're going to be good. They're going to be competitive, but I don't know that you can get back to where they were a couple of years ago after they lose a bunch of talent in free agency this year.
I'm a little bit of a different voice on the Eagles in the sense. I do agree with you. I think they're a loser in this, but a year ago when they were busy just beating the Chiefs, the brains out at the Superdome, and I covered that game. I think the Eagles, to their credit, in the playoffs that year were spectacular.
Yeah.
But after that run, people are one of the greatest teams. I was like, were they? During the regular season, they were fine. They were good, but they weren't that. They just got white hot. Absolutely white hot at the right time. The year before that, they did nothing. The year after it, they did nothing. I think to their credit, they got unbelievably red hot and just, look, I covered that game. I was in the press box that night. I don't know that any team in the last 30 years could have played the Eagles that night and beaten them. The Eagles were just unbelievable. Yeah, I look at the roster right now, and it's not unbelievable. It's, you got a good offensive line still. But guard is more of a question than it once was. If they trade AJ Brown, it's Devonta Smith and who? Like, I don't know. Who is it? I have no idea who it is. Love Saquon Barkley, but I said this at the time, and I'll say it now. When you have a year like that, history says that is the only year you're having like that. I mean, it just doesn't have. There's nobody in the league who's ever had 2,000 yards and then ever had another season of more than 1,400. They just don't. It doesn't happen. Defensively, a lot of guys are gone. I mean, yeah, look, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, I feel like Jalen Carter was supposedly going to be the next like Warren Sapp. And he's a good player, but he's not Jeffrey Simmons. He's not Chris Jones. He's not Dexter Lawrence. He's not Quinnen Williams. He's not one of those guys. Their edge rush right now, it's Nolan Smith. And it's a lot of like wait and see. They took a swing on Bryce Huff a year ago. That was a disaster. They ended up having to move on from him after a year. And then, look, I think in the secondary, love the corners. Like, that's the one thing. Like, Mitchell, DeJean, great corners. Safety's a big Blankenship was a good player for them. Like, just one of those guys who's always around the football. So I agree with you. Like, I think the Eagles, that's a bad division. Like, I think the Eagles might even win the division, but I don't see them as a contending team. Like, are they even a top 10 team in the league right now? Maybe, but it's debatable. And then also to like the Sirianni thing. It feels like they all kind of hate each other every day of the year.
Yeah.
Like I think Sirianni's shtick works when you're winning. When you're winning and he's doing all his, stuff on the sideline, it's like, yeah, we love it. But like when you're not good, it's like, can he get them back on track? Which like the answer so far has been no. Like when things have started to slide, it's just been an absolute catastrophe.
I definitely agree. And really the interior pass rush is great. They have one guy who really does it. When they won the Super Bowl, they had Milton Williams there. So they had multiple guys rotating. And who's their edge? I mean, who is the guy who you're scared of game planning? Jalen Phillips was that a little bit, but now he's gone, and losing Blankenship matters, and losing Nakobe Dean, who was a really good blitzer, matters. I actually also thought keeping Dallas Goedert was a negative for them, even though it wasn't that expensive. He's just old and is faded, and I don't think he makes a big impact anymore. And I'm also factoring in that they probably will have to trade AJ Brown, which if you get to that point, you're not the winner of that when you're trading that player. They're number 5 on my list. Number 4 was the Packers. And it wasn't like they did a ton, but that was kind of the problem is, they trade away Rashawn Gary, or he gets his Instagram hacked, and then they trade away Rashawn Gary. They add a linebacker who hasn't been very good, and Zaire Franklin. I just don't really see what they lose. Romeo Doubs, who's been a really good player for them. I don't see where this team as a whole got any better at all. And I think that the needle actually went back the other way for them.
Yeah, I've always kind of been a guy who's like, probably not the most popular thing to say on this podcast, but like kind of pro Packers. I feel like because I believe in the infrastructure of the team. Like I always just kind of look at them and it's like, well, they're just going to figure it out. They're smart. Matt LaFleur is a smart coach. I think Gutekunst does a pretty good job. I think I've always kind of been like, well, they will make the most of whatever situation they have. But I agree. I did not like their offseason. Listen, you lose Walker for nothing. Walker, by the way, of any contract we projected at SI, here's what I was the most wrong with. I figured like, oh, he's going to get the Dan Moore like 480 contract. You got nothing. You got nothing. I could not believe what he got. It feels like every year there's 2 or 3 guys everybody thinks is going to get like a decent amount of money, and it just gets Jack. Well, he was one of them. They let him walk. Jenkins, they had to cut because of the cap situation. He walks. That's a loss. And then, Dobbs is I know they have a million receivers, but Dobbs is probably the best one along Jaden Reed. Like, I like Christian Watson because he never plays. So it's like, okay, if Watson has a hamstring pull this year and he misses half the season, who's playing? Because Matthew Golden wasn't good last year, and Dontavian Wicks is a guy. So it's like Jaden Reed and company. Defensively, look, I like Franklin maybe a little more than you, but I also look at them and say, okay, but you're still losing more than you're getting with losing Quay Walker. Nate Hobbs, I know didn't play a ton last year. I thought, when he played with the Raiders, he was good. I thought they might give him another year. They don't. the Packers, so much to me with the Packers just rides on two ACLs. Like, can Parsons come back and be Parsons right away? Can Kraft come back and be Kraft? It should be easier because he's got more time to recover and all that. But yeah, like the Packers, I've always felt the last few years like they're just light on big time talent. And that's why I loved when they got Parsons for them, because I was like, that's like, they need a guy. Like, you don't win Super Bowls because you have like a bunch of guys who are good.
Right.
You win Super Bowls because you have some dudes who are great. And yeah, like the Packers, it's like, other than Parsons, who is that guy? Like, that's my problem with them. I feel like they let too many good players out the door when you don't have enough of those top tier great players.
And they are plus 200 to win the division on FanDuel, which is very close to the Lions. I think that speaks to the division more of every team being B+ than it does to the Packers actually doing anything this offseason. And there's another loss too that I think was so clear it was going to happen that everyone just accepted it and didn't talk about its potential impact, but that's Malik Willis. The last 2 years, Jordan Love has gotten banged up, and they have been able to bring in this really awesome backup quarterback to win a game. They can't do that now. I don't actually know who's going to be their backup quarterback, if they're going to trade for Anthony Richardson or something, but that's not the same as every time Malik Willis came in, he could win a game for them. They just lost a lot. I mean, an offensive lineman, linebacker, edge talent in Kingsley Enagbare, running back depth. Like and the only guy that they brought in was Javon Hargrave, who the Vikings let go, who was okay. Like, he was okay last year. He was fine. He might be a little better for them in their system. So I think that they are one of the losers. The next one on my list is the Seattle Seahawks, who I think are still a phenomenal football team, still deserve to be, if you're power ranking, one of the top 5 teams in the NFL. But this is what happens every time someone wins the Super Bowl, is everybody just grabs everything off your roster. Kenneth Walker, Reek Woolen, Boye Mafe, Kobe Bryant. They lost a lot of talent, and they really didn't have the money, knowing that they needed to re-sign Jackson Smith and the Jigba. They were able to keep Rashid Shaheed, which was big for them, but they don't have the money to go out and spend huge dollars. So how much in your mind did Seattle fall off because of what happened this offseason?
Okay, so you laid it out well. I agree with a lot of what you said. I actually will just say this. Like, can we just have an honest conversation about Seattle? Like, look, Seattle won the Super Bowl and was a deserving champion. Like, they played a great NFC title game against the Rams. They smacked New England around. I mean, I was at that game. I was just laughing basically in the third quarter. I mean, this is ridiculous. New England may not score a point. Defensively, Seattle is really, really good. Offensively, I think there's a real case to be made that we're sitting here at like week 8 and there's going to be a bunch of think pieces. Like, what's wrong with Seattle's offense? As it turns out, like Clint Kubiak mattered.
Yeah.
And Darnold is a product of what's around him. Like, and that, to be fair to him, is a hell of an upgrade from where he was early in his career. But he's a product of what's around him. They lost Kenneth Walker, which, listen, not only does that matter, but Charbonnet is coming off the knee now that he hurt in the playoffs. Like, who knows when he's healthy? I think Seattle is a good team. But like, there was at the end of the year when they won the Super Bowl, there's all this talk, like Mike McDonald even was like, "Oh, we think we're one of the greatest teams ever." And it's like, listen, no, you're not. Like, I've watched football for 30 years. No, you're not. Okay. Everybody spent all last year talking about how last year was one of the weirdest NFL seasons we've all ever seen. How nobody was any good.
Yeah.
And like, I push back on the fact that nobody was good, but nobody was great. Like, that Seattle team was a good team, deserved to win the Super Bowl. The Eagles of 2 years ago would have absolutely beat the daylights out of Seattle. The Chiefs, each of the 2 years prior, would have beaten Seattle. Like, you're not thinking about Mahomes over Darnold in the Super Bowl? I mean, come on. Like, it's, look, I think Seattle, I got to tell you, I think Seattle's the third best team in their own division. Like, and that's not, I know the Seahawks fans might go crazy, but like, you lost a lot. And listen, all the credit in the world, but like, the NFL is such a small sample size by nature. That playoff game against the Rams showed why they're a deserving champion. The game prior to that against the Rams, one of the weirdest games you'll ever see in your life. If they lose that game, which, let's face it, by all intents and purposes, they should have lost that game. They're a wild card team. They're not even in the Super Bowl. So, like, I think Seattle, like if they go 10-7 next year and they're like a 6 seed, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah, I would project that actually. I mean, because also you look at the Super Bowl and you go down their roster, they had no injuries. I mean, Zach Charbonnet was the only guy out of,
right.
isn't that crazy? Like out of their entire starting lineup, offense and defense, they're missing their number 2 running back. So I guess he wasn't even the starter. Kenneth Walker, also them kind of just being like, okay, Kenneth Walker, go away. I don't like, what are you doing in the backfield now? Are they going to draft Jadarian Price or something and make him their starter right away, which comes along with risk. But one of the reasons they were high on my list is exactly what you said. Losing Clint Kubiak, I don't think that that's an easily replaced thing. I saw the Vikings once upon a time try to replace Pat Shurmur / Kevin Stefanski with John DeFilippo. It does not always work. You mentioned Nick Sirianni and the offensive coordinators there trying to replace, we'll just get somebody else to act like Kellen Moore. Doesn't always work from that perspective. So I think they have dropped back behind the Los Angeles Rams in that division. Next team on my list is the Dallas Cowboys. You know, I gave the Vikings some credit for crickets because I think they need to think long-term and so forth. Trading Osa Odigizua to a NFC team that's good is weird. Yes. And then shrugs with the rest of their offseason. They did basically nothing. And I don't know how you're supposed to get better. It's great that you fired your defensive coordinator and all that. He was very bad. I just see no upgrade whatsoever. And Dak's career at the back end is basically, to me, it's going to be just 8-win seasons where he plays really well and they don't have enough juice to beat anybody.
Yeah, I think, look, that's pretty fair. Like they tag Pickens, which is just setting the stage for Jerry to posture at Oxnard for about a month and a half.
Yes.
Before he ends up giving him $300 million and the keys to the city in September. I mean, the Cowboys are basically the team they were last year. But they lose to Digazua. I agree with you. Like, he's a good player. Like he's a really good player. And my whole thing with them is, so you traded Parsons, but then you acquired Quinn Williams, but then traded this guy. Like, well, what is the point of all this?
Right.
Like, it's like buying a car and then trading the car in and then buying another car. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense. That secondary to me, you could throw on them whatever you want. I don't. Their back seven's not good. The front seven is Williams and like, they've got picks. Like they're gonna have to nail their picks. I mean, that's gonna be the big thing with it. But I agree with you. In a class where I actually thought like, hey, listen, they make a couple moves on defense. It's interesting. They did. Like, I don't care if they got Rashawn Gary. I don't care.
Yeah,
like he's fine. And it's not to say Rashawn Gary's not a good player. He's a good player, but like he's not a needle mover. I like Jalen Thompson, but he's not. Like he's a good player, but again, like, does it change? Does it change things? No, not really. I agree. I think they're right where they were. 500 team, 8-9 win team.
Which to me is, I don't know. Like, what is Jerry doing?
He doesn't know, which is the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. So, do you know who I have as the number 1 biggest loser of free agency? Do you got a guess? We've covered a lot of the conference.
The Lions.
It is not the Lions, but that is a good pick. I thought about, I was trying to decide, like, do the Lions or Bears belong in this list? And I came up with kind of no, because I felt like the Bears shuffled some guys out, some guys in that were fairly equal. And with the Lions, at very least, they improved their center position, maybe by quite a bit. So
I'm assuming in Tampa.
Tampa is correct. Yeah, you lose Mike. You go down the list of guys they lost. Mike Evans, Rashad White, Jamel Dean, and Logan Hall, who I thought kind of had an underratedly good season last year. But Jamel Dean has been one of the better cornerbacks of the last, 3-4 years. And Mike Evans is a consistent 1,000-yard wide receiver that, even though he's been banged up, still, a great player for them. Who's replacing him? I think Tampa Bay had their shot with Baker Mayfield. And when Liam Cohen was calling the plays 2 years ago, they missed that shot. And now you float in kind of the middle and hope.
I agree. I think Tampa, look, I actually, I just wrote the piece. It went up. We're recording this on Tuesday. It went up this morning about Levante David retiring.
Yeah.
Sports Illustrated was able to get that and break that. And he was kind of sit down with us for a while and talk about it. And you lose him. You lose Mike Evans. You lose Dean, as you mentioned. Like I also thought some of the signing, like Alex Anzalone at this point. Why? Like, I don't know. Really, they're all about bringing in older guys from Detroit, like Muhammad and Anzalone.
Yeah.
It just feels like a team that's just kind of spinning its wheels. You lost Rashad White. They brought in Gainwell. Like, okay, it's not. I don't feel like they had it. Like they took a bunch of steps back necessarily. Although losing Evans and Dean and David are big. I think they can absorb Evans to some degree because of Ibuka and whatnot. But they're going to be where they've been for years. It's just we can win the NFC South. Okay, great. I don't know what else you can do. I picked them to go to the NFC title game last year. I was like, I believe in Tampa. And early in the year, I felt great about it.
Yeah,
and then Mayfield is brutal the last half of the year. So, I will say too, I just think at what point is it like time for a coaching change?
You nailed it. This is one of the reasons I named them the biggest losers was actually that they kept Todd Bowles. Yep, that's right.
What are we doing? When I watch a game and I watch a coach, I'm like, is that guy an advantage to that team? I can't think of one time where I've ever been like, man, Todd Bowles as a head coach is really like, they don't win that game without Todd on the sideline. It's like, love him as a D coordinator, but as a head coach, it's not terrible, but he's just kind of there. Like, it's a guy, he's all right. Yeah, sure. I think the Buccaneers are just kind of, that's why I said earlier, I think anything in that division, you could make the case for or against them. Like, there's a lot of, any of those teams could win 7 games and any of them could win 9. And I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, sure. Yeah, maybe. Like, it's probably, honestly, that division is going to come down to who plays best in it. Who goes 5-1 in the division. Like, that's probably going to be a team who wins the division.
Matt, this has been super fun. Is there anything that you feel like I missed? Like what? Like was there a team on a list? We did cover a lot. Was there a team on the list where you were like, bro, why didn't you include X, Y, or Z?
The Niners were one of my big winners of free agency.
Oh, okay.
Because of Evans and Adigizua. I think they did a nice job. I don't care if they brought back Greenlaw. He's, I think, kind of just physically finished at this point. But I like what they did a lot. I think they did a nice job. And then, not that they're a loser. I think one of the biggest losses any team has had in free agency, Drew Dahlman retiring is a massive, massive deal in Chicago. Like, Garrett Bradbury was not good last year. And Vikings fans are familiar with Garrett Bradbury. Like, he's not good. He's not a good, and Dahlman was awesome for them. Like, if you talk to people with the Bears, they would tell you that one of the biggest reasons that team turned around last year were those 3 guys inside.
Yep.
Losing him in the middle, that is a major loss. Like, I can't express how big of a loss I think that is for them.
You could probably put the Bears in my Eagles spot. Like, I still think the Eagles were not one of the winners, and I'm projecting an A.J. Brown trade, but losing a lot of their secondary, Brisker going, Wright signing somewhere else, Byard signing somewhere. I mean, Wright and Byard aren't superstars, but they made plays for them, and I think they wanted a Max Crosby type of deal. They didn't land it with anybody, and I still look at their defense and go, where is the superstar talent that's supposed to get after the passer on that defense? Last year, they signed Grady Jarrett. Like, what a disaster that was. And maybe they didn't want to make that same sort of mistake again, but now they've got to go try to get talent in the draft. And I agree with you. Vikings fans see Garrett Bradbury, who was a good leader and very intelligent guy, but that if you have power on the inside, you're going to drive him right back into the quarterback. So good call on the Chicago Bears. I noticed that you have now I don't know if you had this before the last time we talked, but Patreon podcast where you're covering everything. Where can people find that?
Yeah, patreon.com, Patreon app. It's linked out to Spotify. It's the Matt Verderame show, which originally was just Chiefs, but now I have a one I do every Wednesday. It's the whole league. And then, there's also everything and its mothers on SI.com and on Twitter. I did a feature, as I mentioned earlier, Levante David. He wanted to break his retirement through SI, and so I wrote that up for us, and he was great. I talked to Mike Evans, Gerald McCoy for it. And then I'll have, as everyone does this time of year, just draft coverage to no end. So I'll be at the owners' meetings in Arizona with Albert Breer covering it for SI. So, plenty to keep an eye on.
I will see you there. And if anyone wonders what it's like when you drop by training camp, it's like this with you and I watching practice. So although last year you caught a walkthrough,
oh my God,
that was the worst.
Yes, it was brutal. It's brutal. Sat there and watched him do nothing for 2 hours.
Yep. Matt, but you are the best, man. I'm always very, very pleased to catch up with you. I will see you in Arizona and appreciate your time, man. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
All right. Football.